The Soviet Union during World War II incurred an unprecedented loss of soldiers and civilians, and most importantly, its industrial and agricultural regions were virtually completely destroyed. The Soviet Union found itself in a rather difficult position after the end of World War II, as it bore the brunt of Germany's main offensive. However, the Second World War provided many advantages to the Soviet Union, thanks to which the country would soon occupy one of the leading positions in the world. In this video we'll discuss the advantages gained by the Soviet Union as a result of the Second World War. The first achievement can be considered the expansion of its own territories as a result of the Second World War. The Soviet government annexed a number of lands during World War II, which subsequently remained within its borders. The lands of the Baltics were annexed, which by the way Western countries did not want to recognize, as well as the lands of Poland, Romania and Hungary, which were ultimately joined to Soviet Ukraine and Belarus. Also, a new republic, Moldova, was created. Lands were detached from the Axis powers. Part of Eastern Prussia was annexed to Russia, and today is Kaliningrad region, and lands of South Sakhalin and the Kuril Islands were handed over to Japan. In general, the Soviet Union, as a result of the Second World War, acquired significant territories with millions of populations, which obviously benefited the Soviet Union both in terms of expanding its territory and expanding its economic potential. The second most important achievement was the expansion of influence in Europe and Asia, and the establishment of essential puppet governments on the territory of other countries. During World War II, the Soviet Union liberated many countries from fascist regimes, but at the same time began to establish its own rules there and promote socialist governments. Thus, as a result of the Second World War, socialist states began to emerge throughout the world, which could not have happened before the war. In fact, all of Eastern Europe became socialist: Poland, Hungary, Yugoslavia, Romania, Bulgaria, Czechoslovakia, and Albania. The socialist regime was established in the occupation zone of Germany, and in its place emerged the German Democratic Republic. Expansion also went towards Asia. After World War II, communists won the civil war in China, and North Korea also established a pro-Soviet regime. These events would not occur without the Second World War, and if the Soviet Union had not participated in the war against Japan. The Mongolian issue was also resolved, and Mongolia was recognized as an independent country from China. The expansion of the sphere of influence became the most important achievements of the Soviet Union during the Second World War. It was precisely the establishment of subordinate socialist regimes around the world that gave the Soviet Union the status of a superpower. The third significant factor in the expansion of Soviet influence was the popularization of communist ideas after World War II. After the Soviet Union's victory over Nazi Germany, many were absolutely convinced that it happened thanks to the socialist system and saw in it real power. As a result, socialist views became welcomed among millions of people worldwide, and millions became members of communist parties. While Eastern Europe quickly established socialist regimes, there was also a growth of pro-Soviet sentiments in the West. The Italian Communist Party became one of the leading parties in the country, with millions of Italians joining its ranks. In France, communists also gained popularity, securing the first place in the 1945 parliamentary elections. Even in conservative Britain, the Communist Party gained popularity. The influence of communists was greater than ever, and they began to influence the politics of Western countries, pushing their laws. Due to the Marshall Plan, the direct influence of communists on governments weakened. However, communist views remained popular among the population. It's worth noting that the influence of communist ideas extended far beyond Europe and spread worldwide. Until the end of the 20th century, this led to regular uprisings and revolutions under the banners of communists. It was the outcome of the Second World War that sparked a new wave of popularity for communist ideology. The fourth factor is the weakening of potential opponents and competitors. Despite the clear emergence of a bipolar world between the United States and the Soviet Union after the war, the Second World War weakened several potential opponents of the Soviet Union. All countries that were previously global hegemons and could dictate international policy were essentially neutralized. Primarily, this refers to Germany. Its militarism was curbed, and Germany was divided into parts after World War II, essentially becoming puppets in the hands of the Soviet Union and the United States. Additionally, Germany faced restrictions on the development of its military and industry. The same happened with Japan, which posed a significant threat to Russia from the east. Moreover, even former allies weakened after World War II, despite the victory in the war. First and foremost, we talk about Britain, which has been essential power in the world for the past couple of centuries. After World War II, Britain found itself in debt, and the process of decolonization began. Almost immediately after the war, Britain lost India and Palestine, and there was unrest in British Malaya. Throughout the 20th century, Britain steadily lost its influence in the world and relinquished control of all its colonies. France also started to lose its influence, and the process of decolonization affected it as well. After World War II, France gradually lost control over its colonies in Southeast Asia, which are the modern territory of Laos, Vietnam, and Cambodia, and a similar trend applied to other colonial countries. Most importantly, not only did countries begin to lose control over territories, but communist or socialist governments sympathetic to the Soviet Union also began to be established on colonial lands. After the end of World War II, the victorious country created a new organization to maintain peace, the United Nations Organization. The new organization became a kind of replacement for the League of Nations, which poorly handled its task. While the Soviet Union was a member of the League of Nations for only 5 years and was eventually expelled after the start of the Soviet-Finnish War, it became one of the founders of the UNO. And moreover, the Belarusian and Ukrainian Soviet Socialist republics became separate members of the UNO, giving the Union 2 additional votes. Thus, from being an outsider, the Soviet government turned into a leader in international politics. A separate mention should be made of the establishment of the United Nations Security Council, which included the Soviet Union, the United States, Britain, France, and China. This is one of the most important organs of the United Nations, which resolves international issues. Each of these countries has the right to veto, meaning any country can reject any proposal. A significant factor in the creation of nuclear weapons in the Soviet Union was the capture of German scientists during World War II. Several German scientists, evacuated to the Soviet Union as a result of the war, played a crucial role in the development of certain industries in the Soviet Union. The nuclear program was particularly important, allowing the Soviet Union to achieve parity in military potential with the United States. After the war, more than 100 of German specialists in rocketry were forcibly removed. Nikolaus Riehl, Helmut Gottschalk, Gustav Hertz, and several others played a significant role in the development of nuclear weapons. But not only scientists were evacuated, but also German developments in this field. As we can see, despite such a devastating war, the Soviet Union ultimately derived many benefits for its system.